No other race in the Endless series is more prepared to embrace their ultimate fate than the Hisho, and no other race would be more proud to be destroyed within a fiery cockpit or obliterated under planetary barrage defending their home. The Hisho's history is long and brutal, starting as small family-centered tribes, then becoming the playthings of the concrete Endless, to an interplanetary empire reckoning with their emerging power and their painful past. Any race that encounters these avian warriors will be met with hostility and a pride derived from a self-assuredness that the galaxy belongs to them as inheritance. But are they the children of the Endless? Or are they an experiment, cut loose long after the death of their captors? The story of the Hisho begins on the hot, craggy jungle world of Uchi. The land of Uchi is steamy and teeming with unwelcoming co-inhabitants to the Hisho. The northern lands are an arid wasteland, juxtaposed by the oceans and wilderness in the lowlands. In such an environment, the Hisho develop tightly knit clans and tribes, referred to as broods or nests, in which the individual could place their entire trust in return for their obedience. These clans would commonly come into conflict, and over generations encourage the development of a warrior culture, much like that of the eagle warriors of the Aztec and the samurai of the pre-Meiji era in Japan. One sacrifice for the clan is to be expected, as is their devotion to their tokuso. This warrior culture encompasses more than just battle conduct. It dictates their role and responsibility within their society. Similarly to the Aztec culture, the Hisho venerate the sun and place special importance in blood offerings. The Hisho make regular practice of sacrificing entire portions of their population to their sun god and to their ancestors. Such veneration is expected of each individual. As is to be expected for the scale of time that is biological and social evolution, it can't be precisely dated when the Hisho became the dominant species upon Uchi. And because the concrete Endless decided to intervene, it is even difficult to determine which of their ideals and beliefs developed before or after said intervention. However, the Hisho were the apex predators by the time the Endless arrived. This therefore made them the prime candidates for experimentation by the Endless. The Last Flight of the Grey Owl details the virtual's assault on Psychogogia, the planet upon which the Hisho, as well as a few other creatures, were experimented on and participated in training, hunts, and enhancement. The story is told from the perspectives of two Hisho, Durgo Kura, captain pilot of the Grey Owl, and Akama Daitan, warrior of the Blood Sister cult. The story begins with Durgo Kura preparing their ship, the Grey Owl, to leave for Uchi with new Hisho and some other experimental creatures when they are called to meet with Director Uragiri. Upon arriving at the director's office, Durgo notices that the AI of the facility is conversing in a more casual manner, and that the surveillance of the multiple arenas within the facility are showing false recordings. Uragiri concludes that this must mean that the Greater War has reached Psychogogia, and that their priority should be evacuating as many Hisho as possible. They arm themselves and delve into the facility. Uragiri is swiftly killed by a small herd of new pigs while Durgo rushes to assist the Hisho crafters and broodmothers. As he arrives, he meets Akama, and they conclude that there is no sense in remaining and that they should immediately return to the Grey Owl. Their group consists of 4 broodmothers, 2 other blood sisters, 4 crafters, 2 Rayans, a robot, and a Haroshem scientist. The Rayans are particularly interesting from a lore perspective, but we'll have to get into that in a future video. As they return to the Grey Owl, the group suffers a few losses, including one of the Ryans, one of the Blood Sisters, 3 crafters, 2 of the broodmothers, and Durgo Kura, who remain behind to defend the ship during takeoff from 2 Taurians. Akama mourns the losses of one of the broodmothers and her fellow blood sister, and is informed that the ship has been damaged, preventing it from being able to reach Uchi via wormhole. In searching for a port to repair their ship, they decide to go to a Taurian planet named Auriga. Now that we have a basic outline of the narrative, there are quite a few things that we should cover. According to the novella, the Endless's intervention is referred to by the Hisho as the contract. Although this term seems to denote an equal or at least understood exchange, Durgo has contesting feelings.
Waiting on new pig breeder. I grimaced. I would have preferred to leave without it. Too many of the gifts we received as part of the contract seemed subtly poisonous. But I love what I have learned, and what I do, and what the Hisho may become. If, as my brother once said, the barter in the contract does not include our souls.
I think this raises a very interesting philosophical question, and one that I will touch upon, but will include diverting from the novella for a short moment. My interpretation of this excerpt is that it evokes debate of the philosophy of free will versus determinism. It encourages consideration of how much alteration to a being's fabric ultimately alters their being. Have the Endless enhanced the Hisho to such a degree that they are, for all intents and purposes, no longer Hisho? Consider for a moment that humanity has unlocked the technology to enhance their minds and bodies. However, only a select few humans are allowed to receive these upgrades, and for these enhancements to be placed, the subjects must leave Earth. Each individual's upgrades are tested by pitting them against similarly upgraded wild beasts or made to serve alien dignitaries. Any sign of failure, therefore, resulting in death or further experimentation. Through trial and error, some upgrades are replaced, and some of those who are experimented on die, leaving behind those who survived. Every now and then, a subject is returned to Earth. They are faster, stronger, smarter, all due to their enhancements. Their destiny irreversibly altered. With the return of one or more subjects, more humans must be taken to be experimented on. Sooner or later, the shape of human culture will be dictated by these enhancements, and the offspring of such enhanced humans. In the same way, the Hisho culture was impacted by the contract. Those who were not enhanced slowly faded into history, but it is hard not to consider whether or not they were meant to. Did not the Endless's intervention drastically change the direction of Hisho evolution and culture? Did the Hisho inadvertently give the Endless the power to reshape their minds, bodies, and their souls? The questline Veneration or Vilification reveals to us the extent of the Endless experimentation. Scientists uncovered that the Hisho of old used to have hollow bones, a sleeker frame, and even fully formed wings. So it is left up to the player, with no impact upon the Hisho's questline, to consider whether the Endless deserve praise for their genetic improvements, or condemnation for their manipulation. Another interesting thing to note from the novella is the apparent caste system that the Hisho appear to function under. From this, we are aware of 3 different castes or organisations: the Blood Sisters, the Broodmothers, and the Crafters. Although these three groups are not detailed comprehensively, there are a few things we can deduce. Firstly, the Blood Sisters are an order or guild of superlative warriors dedicated to battlefield supremacy and protecting the weak. At the midpoint, during their escape, a sister called Kate Shogata is able to bring down a hovercraft while sustaining damage from a shower of bullets. This would indicate that they have some sort of pain dampening quality to them. The Blood Sisters are a well-established order on Uchi, as Akuma tells us that her exploits in the arenas of Psychogoja have profited training centers, museums, and schools, as well as a dojo dedicated in her name where future Blood Sisters are taught. However, between this story and the outset of Endless Space 2, the Blood Sisters will become a distant memory. Secondly, the Broodmothers, like the Craver Society's Queen class, appear to be individuals tasked with birthing. However, unlike the Cravers, the Broodmothers are afforded special reverence. Durgo abandons the director to being gored by new pigs, preferring to save the Broodmothers and Crafters. He also remarks on their demeanour, silent and strong. Kate Shogata sacrifices herself to save the Broodmothers. And finally, the Crafters are a more scientifically and technically minded section of society. Durgo even describes how he can tell that they are Crafters as they have the darker plumage of Hisho from the Hika Savannah. The Crafters are able to navigate the facility during the attack and unlock doors for their escape, an ability that none of the others are capable. An additional note of interest raised in the novella, and the last one we'll look at in this video, is the ultimate destination of the Grey Owl. It is the home of the Husk of Knowledge, a mega complex of genetic and scientific experimentation. It is a planet in the midst of cataclysmic magnetic shifts. It is the planet upon which endless legend takes place. Auriga. Hikensha is a young, passionate Hisho woman who grew up within the vaulted dungeons of the Husk of Knowledge. She is lost and alone within that labyrinth, clinging to what few relics of her people she can find, and is more than willing to kill and die for them. The memory of the Hisho, for Hikensha, exists solely within these relics. It is possible that she is the offspring of one of the survivors of the Grey Owl, and that would bode ill for Akuma Daitan and the others. We know that the Virtual Endless had commenced their attack on Psychogoja, hence the need to escape. However, as the robot identified Auriga as a possible port of call to get their ship repaired, it isn't too much to assume that Auriga was free of war at that time, and thus still controlled by the Concrete Endless. It's possible that the war had already struck and moved on from Auriga, but that would do little to explain the absence of any other Hisho from Dungeon of the Endless and Endless Legend. What I mean is, if the concrete had already been driven off of Auriga, it would not explain why Hikensha is the only Hisho left. Instead, I believe the fate of the survivors is a sad one. The image of the Grey Owl that's used in all of the artwork and for the novella is that of a wreck. Its nose has collapsed and it is nestled into a snowy valley between giant rocks, and yet, save for the nose, the ship is largely undamaged. The nose could have collapsed from the decades or centuries that lay within that valley. Had it suffered a crash landing, we would expect a good deal more damage on the hull of the ship. Keep in mind that Auriga is in the middle of geomagnetic apocalypse also. It seems likely, therefore, that the Grey Owl did not crash land, but rather made port successfully on Auriga. However, upon seeking aid, the survivors were discovered by the Concrete Endless, and their lives return to the way they had been upon Psychogogia, if not much worse. Despite their extensive ill treatment at the hands of the Endless, the Hisho have placed them in a special position within their culture. They do not occupy the space of gods, but their technology is considered sacred. From the comic Blood and Blade, we learn that the Hisho have made use of old Endless forges to create prophetic blades. These blades are capable of creating etchings to commemorate the deeds of their wielders, as well as foretell their deaths. We see in the comic that when Senya Snowridge receives her Hokyu blade, which is the name of the smith and not the name they give to the blades, the blade is a shining silver, and the image of Senya receiving the blade is already etched into the blade. Moments later, however, the image of a Vodyani attack squad appears upon the blade, followed closely by a Vodyani attack squad. Lastly, Senya's father's blade turns black upon the commencement of the battle, and later Senya confirms that the method of her father's death was mimicked by the etchings on the blade. As is the case with much of Endless technology, it functions on dust, and any finer information that would explain how they are made and maintained is unknown to us, so it would be interesting to one day see Master Hokkyu's notes on how to make his notorious blades. We know that they are at least somewhat composed of dust, thanks to the intro video for the Hisho in Endless Space 2. We witness a Hisho that resembles Kogawa Brightblade skewer a cybernetic guardian against what appears to be a regular wall. However, the telltale signs of dust, glowing gold particles, exit the blade and funnel into the wall. As we see, this powers up the Behemoth-class ship, a mysterious and versatile ship almost certainly designed and used by the Endless. We can deduce this due to the cooperative quest, Words in Private, that identifies a signal coming from a transponder of Endless design. Upon completing the quest line, the Behemoth technologies are unlocked in the research screen. This is where Endless Space 2 begins, and the player's individual choices take center stage. The Hisho are experiencing an intense existential crisis. The Toxo, Iolo Black Gaia, stands at a crossroads between tradition, honor, and faith. Will you draw upon their legacy of combat and lead them to dominate the galaxy from the bridges of their rock or dive class carriers? Will you earn your empire's respect and devotion by emulating the deeds of the Blood Sisters and serve to better the lives of those who fall under your shadow? Or will you forge a new path with new ideas and new technologies and reach the heights the old masters would never have allowed were they alive? Thank you for watching and or listening. Please leave this video a like if you enjoyed the content, and post a comment below about anything I missed or even something I might have got wrong. The team at Amplitude Studios have a forum for sharing creative content and discussing the universe over at Games Together, and you can find the link in the video description below. Also, a subscription to the channel makes me feel great, so feel free to do that too if you fancy it. And toggling the bell next to the subscribe button will let you know when the next episode comes out in a fortnight. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.